What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CBB Yapper. Today's episode will be a little bit shorter as I am feeling a little under the weather here, but we're going to go over some of the games that I pointed out on Thursday's episode as games to watch for this weekend. I'm going to issue a slight apology to a team I may have been a little bit harsh on Thursday's episode, and then we'll wrap it up with some games to watch between now and next episode, which comes out on Thursday. But without further ado, let's get into it. The first game I wanted to talk about here today was that St. Louis and St. Bonaventure game that took place on Friday night. I pointed that one out just because I wanted to get another look at St. Louis. I haven't watched them too extensively. I think I've only watched that being my third game this year. So I haven't really seen them too much, but every time I watch them, they're just super impressive. I get it. St. Bonaventure is not a very good team. I completely understand that, but St. Louis is just really fun to watch. They just completely routed St. Bonaventure, and that first half was awesome. They just lit it up from the field. I think they put up 50 in the first half. Just a really good game from St. Louis, just trying to prove why they deserve to be in that top 25 and why they deserve that nod this week. But yeah, this is just a team that if you see them in March, it's not going to be a fun time. You better be ready to play if you see St. Louis in your bracket because they will beat you. They just have six guys who can get a bunch of different buckets in different ways. Obviously, Robbie Avila is awesome and so much fun to watch. But yeah, they have a lot of depth. It's certainly not just him. And St. Bonaventure was just clearly outmatched. They just clearly did not have the talent to keep up with a team like St. Louis. They're just a really, really good team. They can score the ball, they play really good defense, and they just kind of buy into that team basketball, which is kind of what those mid-major teams have to do in order to make a run in March. But yeah, as I said earlier, if you see them lined up against you in the first round of March, look out because they are certainly going to be ready to play. And if you aren't, they will run you out of the gym. I fully believe that they can take down some of these top teams in March. If they end up getting like a 12 or 11 seed, I could easily see them even being the favorite in that game and being one of those games that you kind of scratch your head at how this team is favored over a 6 or a 5 seed. This is one of those teams that will deserve that. Up next, Saturday was a little bit weird. I wanted to watch all of these games in their entirety. That's kind of why I set this schedule up as I did on Thursday. I tried to find different games that were in different time slots. And then as soon as I concluded my Thursday episode, a bunch of reschedules came out and changing games to noon. So there was 3 games that ended up playing at noon that I tried to watch. Obviously, I'm a huge Duke fan, so I did watch a little bit of that Duke Wake Forest game, but fortunately, Duke gave me a game where I didn't necessarily have to be holding on to my seat the entire time, so I was able to flip around to different games and watch some of the better games that were taking place at the time. One of those games was UNC Virginia. This is the part where I feel like I owe UNC an apology. They clearly heard all the chatter from around the nation about how bad they are and how many questions they have as a team and whether or not they're legit. And they came out and put in a huge W over a very good Virginia team. This was a really impressive win for UNC. Like I said, this doesn't remove all of my questions for them. It certainly still leaves some of them there, but this was exactly the type of bounce back that they needed to kind of remove some of those doubts at least. I still think that there's plenty of questions about this Tar Heel team. I don't think that they're elite necessarily, but they're certainly still a good team. And as I mentioned on Thursday's episode, I do still think that they have the talent to be a top 25 team. I do still think that they should make the March Madness tournament very easily, but after weeks like they had last week, I think it was perfectly fair to question how good and how legit they are. However, after Saturday, I think it's fair for me to issue an apology and say that I was certainly wrong. I thought that UVA was going to beat UNC by 10 plus probably. I certainly was wrong about that. The first half seemed to try and prove me right, but then UNC just battled the entire second half. I think they even came back from a 16-point deficit. So, yeah, just a really impressive win for UNC, getting their first road win in the ACC this year against a very good UVA team. Certainly removes a lot of doubt that I had coming into this game. I still don't think that they deserved a top 25 nod coming into this week, just based on how they were playing before this week. But after this game, I think they certainly showed why they earned it, at least, or why they were in that conversation. They're certainly a very talented team. I still need to see them continue with this momentum and continue to push forward. Especially they have Georgia Tech coming up this weekend, who is a very lackluster team. But Georgia Tech is a team that typically gives UNC and Duke some problems. They always like to try and throw one big upset in the ACC every single year. So definitely need to avoid a slip up there against Georgia Tech on Saturday. But yeah, for Virginia, they really just need to bounce back. That was a really bad second half. They blew, like I said, a 16-point lead. They out-rebounded UNC by 16. 16. And they still lost that game. They had plenty of chances to put that game away and just kept letting UNC hang around, kept letting them cut into the deficit. And that's what happens when you let a team hang around like that. A team that you should be beating, when you let them hang around, you start to give them that hope, start to give them that belief that they can beat you. And once it gets to the end of the game, they can. It's a one possession game and anything can happen. So UVA really needs to figure out how to close games from here on out, especially after that Virginia Tech game as well that they blew. I think that their second half worries could be something that could start to show here very shortly, but I think they're a very good team. I think they're going to bounce back. I still think that they're a top 5 team in the ACC. They just ran up against another top 5 team in the ACC. UNC just needs to keep moving forward, but UVA needs to kind of look in the mirror here and look at what went wrong in that second half and bounce back against 2 really bad ACC teams this week in Notre Dame and Boston College. I'd like to see them run both of them out of the gym just to kind of get back on track here and stay in that top 25. Moving on, another awesome game. I unfortunately did not get to watch this full game either, as all 3 of these games, the Duke game, the UNC game, and the UConn game, were on at around the same time. Thankfully, though, this one went into overtime and started 30 minutes later than the Duke game, so I was able to tune into at least a majority of the second half. I saw parts of the first half as the Duke first half ended a little bit earlier than theirs did, so I did get to go over there and see Nova take that lead into halftime. But just looking at it, this was an awesome game. I mean, when I was tuned in, it was super awesome, super competitive, and just back and forth the entire time. It seemed like when one team made a run, the other team had a run to come back and mitigate that run as well. But this is exactly what I wanted to see from Nova, and I'm sure as a Nova fan, this can't be that big of a letdown. They truly gave UConn a scare. I honestly thought that Nova was going to pull this one out until it got to the end of the game. The last minute before overtime did not look very good for Nova, but this was just a really valiant effort for them. They lost in overtime, obviously, so a super competitive game throughout. And the biggest thing that I think is something to look forward to as a Wildcat fan from this one is you got really bad play from both of your best guards. I mean, Lindsey and Caden Lewis really struggled for most of the game. They both did not score above 10 points, which is very bizarre for them. I don't expect that to continue to happen. I think that was also part of what Hurley tried to do defensively against this Villanova team. But yeah, I'm certainly going to have this rematch in February scheduled and circled as well. I believe that's on February 21st, so definitely look forward to us covering that one and watching that one. That one should be in Nova this time as well. So yeah, it'll be another great game and should be another, hopefully, top 25 matchup by that point in the season, because I really do believe that this Nova team deserves to be at least approaching that top 25 nod. And St. John's should be there as well. So the Big East is starting to come around a little bit. They're still really lackluster after those top 3 teams. I believe Seton Hall and Creighton are just not showing me enough right now. But yeah, the Big East is really starting to turn it around. They're starting to show that they have some teams that can compete with anybody in the top 25, it seems. And yeah, look for UConn to just continuing to dominate. They're just such a good team. Villanova is a really good team as well, but UConn just has a little bit more talent, and that's why they pulled that one off. Another really, really, really good game that took place on Saturday. This one I was actually able to watch in its entirety, and that is Texas Tech and Houston. This was a game that I mentioned on Thursday's episode that we circled a while back and watched a great game in Houston. and now we get to go see them in Texas Tech. This has been a team that I've been talking about for a couple weeks here, but Texas Tech is just legit. I mean, JT Toppin is clearly one of the best players in the country. He's playing as well as anyone, and with all those freshmen that went off yesterday, he had a extremely good game that just kind of went under the radar just due to all of the freshmen that had incredible games yesterday. But yeah, he dominated versus one of the best defensive teams in the nation, put up over 30, which is just not something that's easy to do against a Houston team and a Kelvin Sampson coach team. But yeah, this is one that I called on Thursday. I thought that Texas Tech would come in and win this game, and they did. The guards were excellent for Texas Tech as well. Atwell, Petty, and Anderson combined for 48, along with Toppin putting up 30 plus. So that's 78 plus points that just come from 4 players, which is incredible. I think it's a little bit worrying that they didn't get much production from anywhere else, but when you're getting 78 points from 4 players, yeah, that's going to be a winning recipe on most nights. Flemings was awesome for Houston as well. He poured in 42 points and 6 assists. This freshman class is just awesome. I mean, if you just look at all of the different games that happened in this freshman class yesterday between Ament, Boozer, DeBansta, Flemings, I mean, they were just all incredible. Even include Caleb Wilson in that. I'm sure I'm missing some as well, but yeah, this freshman class is just really fun to watch. It's going to set up for a really fun March Madness. We're going to have a lot of matchups in the first round and second round of March Madness between 2 top freshmen in the nation, or 2 of who could be viewed as the top freshmen in the nation. And I'm just really getting giddy looking forward to this March Madness tournament. It is going to be so much fun this year. There just seems to be a lot of parity, and I think we're going to see a really competitive March Madness tournament, especially compared to last year where we had those top 4 teams that kind of just ran the table all year. I really don't see that this year. I think everybody is close enough that anybody can be beaten on any night. And yeah, this is just going to set up for a really fun March Madness tournament, and both of these teams should be there late. Houston certainly has their issues. Only Sharp and Flemings showed up. They put in 42 of their 60 total shots on the night, which, I mean, if you're getting 18 shots from the rest of your team combined, that's just not going to be a winning recipe on most nights, and it certainly wasn't on that night. But yeah, they just need more firepower on offense. Their defense is incredible. They're going to be able to defend against anybody in the nation, but offensively, they really need to figure it out. I still think they're an elite team. This game certainly did not change my mind on Houston or Texas Tech, other than maybe give me a little more confidence in Texas Tech. But yeah, both of these teams are going to be there at the end of the year, and if Houston can find some more offensive firepower, they're going to be very good and probably there at the end like they were last year. The last game that I had pointed out on Thursday's episode was Tennessee-Alabama. This one I mostly pointed out just due to the storyline here with Bediako. And of course, he did not really disappoint. It was just a really weird watch. He only played 25 minutes, but if every single minute he was out there on the floor, you could just tell that he did not belong in college. In my personal opinion, it just looked like he kind of dominated the game, especially the paint. He only played 25 minutes, but poured in 13 points and 4 stocks, which was very helpful for this Bama team, especially since they were not playing great on defense like they usually don't. But man, Tennessee really played really good. It was just a back and forth game the entire time, but Ament really had a solid game, and was really cool to see the 19-year-old kind of dominate this game versus Bediako coming obviously back from the G League and dominating the game. So it was cool to see Ament being the best player on the floor in this game. But as I mentioned, Bediako just did not look like he belonged on that floor. And I say that in a good way. I mean, he looked like he was pushing everyone around and just bullying and getting exactly what he wanted when he wanted it. It's going to be weird to watch. Like I said, this Bama team is just going to be really hard to kind of gauge going forward until this Bediako situation gets figured out. Like I said, that temporary restraining order only lasts for 10 days, so we should get a little more clarity on that situation this week coming up. But yeah, it was a really good game. Tennessee really impressed me. That was a win that I think that they really needed. And they certainly came out and showed why they deserve to be back in the top 25 after being dropped out of it last week. But yeah, this Bama team is just, they're good. It's just going to be very hard for me to kind of place any real analysis on them with Bediako in the lineup until we know that he's going to be there for the remainder of the year. If he's there, they're going to be a very good team. They added a lot of rim protection with him, so I think that's going to be a huge piece for them, especially since defense has been the main thing that I've harped on Bama for this year. But yeah, it's just so hard for me to judge how they're going to be without knowing if Bediako is going to be able to play the entire year. If he can, look out. But if he can't, I just think that they don't have enough on defense to be able to stay in all of these games. They certainly have the offensive power, as we've mentioned many times. But yeah, defensively, they really need to figure something out here. And moving on, I did just want to give you guys some games to watch between now and Thursday. Just some games that I'm going to be recapping on Thursday's episode. On Monday, we have two great games, followed up by two great games on Tuesday. But the first game that I'll be looking out for on Monday is my Duke Blue Devils versus the Louisville Cardinals. This should be a much better game than the previous matchup. I was really looking forward to Duke playing Louisville last time, and then Mikel Brown was ruled out for the game, unfortunately. Duke did get down to a pretty big lead to Louisville at first in that game, and then kind of dominated the entire second half in the last 5 minutes of the first half. So I would like to see a little bit more of a competitive game. Well, excuse me. I don't know if I really would as a Duke fan, but as a college basketball fan, I would like to see a more competitive game. Mikel Brown reminded us yesterday why he is so important to Louisville. He looked awesome, especially after missing 8 straight games. He's one of my favorite freshmen to watch in the country. I am personally a huge fan of traditional point guards, and that is exactly what Mikel Brown provides Louisville. When they're at full health, I truly do believe that this Louisville team is the second best team in the ACC, right behind Duke. I just think that they have so much talent, and their guards are just awesome between Mikel Brown and Conwell. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this Louisville team at full strength and getting another rematch against Duke. Of course, this one's going to be in Cameron Indoor, so I still expect Duke to pull this one out, especially as a Duke fan. But I really do think that Louisville is going to come in and give us a run for our money. I think it should be a pretty competitive game throughout. But with Mikel Brown back, he's going to control their entire offense. They're not going to have to just run the entire offense through Conwell, which is a main reason why Duke won last time. They stuck Dame Sarr on Conwell and took him out of the game completely in the second half, which contributed to Louisville really not having an offensive identity in the rest of that game. So it's going to be a lot tougher of a matchup. I'd like to see who they throw on Mikel Brown and who they throw on Conwell. I think it'll be Dame Sarr on Mikel Brown just because I think he's the more talented player, and I think he just contributes a little bit more to their offense in terms of how it runs and running it smoothly. But I could very well see them putting them on Conwell as well. I think if they put Dame on Conwell, that they're looking to just mitigate his scoring rather than the offensive setup. So I'm really interested to see how Shire approaches this one. I think it'll be a really good game, as I mentioned. But yeah, look for Duke to pull this one out. They're playing as good as anyone in the country right now and will be a top 3 team coming out on this AP poll. I think you could even argue them being the number 2 team in the nation just due to UConn kind of struggling in that weak conference that is the Big East right now. But obviously, I'm a little bit biased, so I'll keep them at 3 for now. But yeah, these boys are playing as good as anyone in the nation. Cam Boozer is playing as good as anyone in the nation. And they have 2 of the best defenders in the nation, as I've mentioned last episode with Dame Sarr and Malik Brown. So just look for them to continue to keep getting better. They have a lot of freshmen and a lot of guys who didn't play a ton of minutes last year. So Duke is just going to keep trending upwards, and I'm really excited to see how they continue to get better before March here. And the next game on Tuesday, immediately following that Duke game, is Arizona and BYU. This should be no surprise. This should be circled on everyone's schedule for this week. This is going to be 2 of the best freshmen in the nation going up against each other in Dembinsta and Koa Pete. Dembinsta took a real strong stance after yesterday. He had an incredible game, so he definitely deserved to puff his chest a little bit. But he said that he thinks that BYU is a national championship contender. I certainly don't think that he's wrong in saying that, and certainly love the confidence, but they get an awesome opportunity to back up that talk here on Monday night versus Arizona. Arizona is the best team in the nation right now. That's certainly not arguable. They are incredible and beating the crap out of some good teams. But BYU is certainly one of the best teams in the nation as well. They have one of the best players in the nation, and they will have to come into BYU to get a win here tonight. Tomorrow night. So I am really looking forward to this game. I think this is going to be a super high-paced game with high-level scorers and high-level athletes. So I am really looking forward to this one. I think that BYU certainly has a chance to pull this one off at home and get one of the biggest wins in the nation on their resume. But Arizona certainly is no pushover, and just because it's at BYU does not mean that Arizona will not bring it. I think Arizona is legit and are clearly the best team in the nation by a pretty fair margin right now, and I don't think that's necessarily controversial to say. But yeah, this should just be a really high-paced game, and I am really looking forward to seeing how Pete and DeBance face off against each other. Moving to Tuesday night, we have another two great games on Tuesday. Nebraska versus Michigan is going to tip off at 7 o'clock. And I mentioned before that I do not have Peacock. This is a game that I will have to get Peacock for. This should probably be the game of the week for everyone, in my opinion. Nebraska has been electric all year. They're undefeated and have beaten some really good teams in general, but they've beaten some really good Big Ten teams as well. If they win here, I could see them jumping into the top 4 by next AP poll. I mean, they're going to be, 21-0 if they win this game and have one of the best wins in the nation against Michigan. So I really like their chances to get into the top 5 at the very least, but I think they'll be ranked number 4 if they can win this one. As I said, Peacock is required to watch this one. I will absolutely be signing up and at least getting a trial of Peacock because I have to see this game. But yeah, Michigan, still one of the best teams in the nation, still playing at an elite level, but yeah, just going to be a really good Big Ten matchup here and should be a really fun one to start off our Tuesday night and lead us directly into that Kentucky-Vanderbilt game. Vanderbilt has been a team that I've talked about a lot here recently. They were one of the teams that I was actually very high on around 2 weeks ago, but they have just really trended downwards fast recently. They beat Mississippi State by a ton yesterday, which is exactly what I was looking for. I said on Thursday's episode that if they want to turn this season around quickly, they have to go into Mississippi State and beat them very convincingly. And they did. They beat them by almost 30 points. But now they get a team in Kentucky who has been playing much better ball recently and certainly looking like a top 25 team right now. Both teams are going to be very, very hungry for this one. They both need a win more than air itself. It's going to be a very high-paced and back-and-forth matchup, I believe. So we should be in for a very entertaining game. But I need to see Vanderbilt at least keep this one close. I think that they personally need to win this one just to turn their season around. They've lost 2 of their last 3, so they really need a big win here, especially after dropping some to some more average teams. So getting a win against this Kentucky team would be huge and a big momentum booster for this Vanderbilt team. But Kentucky needs this one as well. They're looking to creep back into the top 25. I mentioned on Thursday's episode that they were the highest paid team in the nation. So they've been disappointing their fans as well as I'm sure their boosters the entire year. So they're going to be looking to get back in the win column as well and rattling off finally a top 25 win. I don't know if Vanderbilt is going to be ranked in the top 25 just based on how poorly they have played here recently, but I do think it'll be at least close. One of these teams should be ranked in the top 25, but this should set us up for a really good game. Like I said, I really want to see Vanderbilt at least keep this close. I think they should. I don't think Kentucky should run them out of the gym by any means, especially after that injury to Cam recently. So I think Vanderbilt has a good opportunity to rattle off a big win here and get themselves back on track. But with that being said, we have a lot of games to look forward to this week, but that is all that I have for today's episode. I appreciate anyone and everyone who listened into this week's episode, and if you enjoyed, go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, and join us back on Sundays and Thursdays for new episodes.